in doing biofield tuning, it's like the body is here and the energy field is around it. At the edge of the field, you have conception. Outside, you have inherited. And if you believe in other lifetimes, outside is where other lifetime stuff is. Personally, I believe that when we're working on this, we're working on the issues for all of humanity. So it's not necessarily me. Yeah, it's not necessarily me and that in some previous lifetime I actually experienced this. It may be, but it could also be, this is just something that humanity has to deal with.
Yeah.
All of humanity. So by working on these issues myself, I am serving that broader community. So you have conception and then inherited and then other lifetimes. And then you have everything that has happened over the course of your lifetime. It's all stored in your energy field.
Welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I am excited to have my guest Sandra Lee here with me today. And I'm going to give you a quick bio. Sandra specializes in turning up the flame, feeding your magic, nurturing the excitement for your life and business. Conscious alignment with your gifts and purpose sees you jumping out of bed in the morning to serve. A healthcare provider and energy practitioner for over 30 years, Sandra explains things in a relatable, easy to understand way. She suggests practical, realistic actions so you can see the path forward, whether you're in pain physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And she uniquely combines human design and biofield tuning, which we're going to talk about today. A primary goal for Sandra is empowering you to be in the driver's seat and consciously create your health, life, and business victories. Thank you, Sandra, for coming on today.
Oh, you are so welcome.
Yes.
I love talking with you and interacting with you.
Oh, yes. Well, we have been lucky to be part of a really unique group, Spirit Calling, and that's how we connected. And I felt like we've known each other for a very long time.
Forever.
Yes. So it was really nice just to kind of sit back and just be myself. And you giving me a little insight on my human design, which we started uncovering the other day. So, well, let's start off with a little bit about how you came to be you in this healing practice. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Do you have a childhood memory that always pops up when you're stuck? It's like it all goes back to that memory. One of those memories for me is I'm 6 years old and I'm sitting on the floor keeping track of the number of times I got in trouble. And around that same time, I used to promise myself over and over again, I'm never going to speak again.
Wow.
Because everything I did was wrong and everything I said was wrong. Now, I don't know if that was actually true, but that's what it felt like to me because of my interactions with my mother. And so as I go through my life and building a business, it keeps coming up, this same old limiting belief stuff. I'm bad and I hurt people. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say, all of these things. And so that's what got me to get into doing healing work, initially to heal myself.
Right.
But then also to help other people.
Now, what did you have any siblings growing up, or was it just you and your mom? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have a sister and a brother.
And where do you fall in line?
I always felt kind of separated from them. Like I always felt disconnected. I felt like I don't belong, part of that whole same set.
Like the black sheep of the family? Or no?
Well, it kind of felt like that. But the truth was, I was the first child and I was the overachiever. I did everything right, have to do everything right, have to do perfectly, be in control. So really, I wasn't the black sheep. I was the achiever, but that doesn't mean I felt that way.
I see now. Yes. And the first, I feel like always gets it the worst because the parents are like, it's their first child. They've got to make sure that they're putting them through every, every activity. They're bringing home great grades. So there's a lot of pressure for the first child.
Yeah. And then, let's talk a little bit about human design here.
Yeah.
When I learned about my human design, it's like, it just makes sense of all of these things. It's like, that's what was happening. That was going on. That's why I felt that way. So understanding about my human design, I call it a cosmic blueprint, helped me make sense of the experiences I had in my life and the ways that I interpreted all of the things that happened.
Yeah. And so do you want to get into how you found human design, or do you want to go into a little bit about the energy healing that you did first?
I had been doing a whole variety of different types of energy healing before getting into human design. I've been doing human design now for 12 years. So I've got, a good period of time where I'd already been doing healing work before. And I started doing energetic modalities and not really feeling like I was getting results.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of things were those? What kind of
Reiki, acupressure, so many different techniques that I don't even remember what they all are anymore.
But you jumped into so many because you were like, I need to come up with something that's going to help me clear out whatever's holding me back.
Yeah.
Because we've all been there. I've done them all too. And they're helpful to a certain extent, but they don't, there's something that you need that like literally catapults you into flow state or alignment, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, partway through that journey, I was still, doing all of these healing things. And that's when I found human design. And I was on a webinar where, those teleseminar series where there would be 30 different presenters all doing something different. So my human design teacher, Karen Parker, was one of those people. And I'd never heard about human design before. Before that, I thought that the positions of the planets didn't matter to me because my experience of astrology was like, this is irrelevant. I don't know what this has to do with anything.
It's like the stuff that you see, like, on the daily. Well, back in the day, it would have like a section in like the newspaper or those feeds that you get, like, here's your horoscope for the day. I can see that. Yeah.
I had even had like a whole bunch of actual readings, personalized readings. And I was like, oh, that's great. But none of it actually affected my life. I didn't and I still don't remember things from my astrology chart. It doesn't seem to have relevance for my actual life. So I thought that the positions of the planets didn't matter to me. And then I found out about human design and learned that, oh, that is so true. Because I learned about myself and my relationship with anger. This is an ongoing issue in my life. And I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm supposed to be this way. And human design helped me learn how to relate to my anger and how to manage it.
Love that.
And it took this aspect of myself that I hated. Like there's something wrong with me that made it just something that is, I can be peaceful about it.
Right. And interestingly enough, because anger had been something that my son was going through, and interestingly enough, I was bringing it up at the gym that I work at, and someone was so kind that gave me 2 books on anger. And I just started reading a couple of pages, and it's saying it's an emotion that we adults don't think it's acceptable. However, if your child never expressed anger, we would have major concerns, wouldn't we? So it's like these things that we want to just like, no, that's a bad emotion. And mine is frustration, which totally can relate to that, like totally. And can't be frustrated. That's a bad thing. So it's wonderful that it's showing us that these are all expressions that we should be having that are natural, but it's harnessing it so it's not taking over, right, our lives.
Yes. If we didn't have frustration and anger, then nothing would ever get done. it takes us getting, oh, this isn't working, to the point where we have to take action to deal with it. So it turns these, what we perceive of as being problems,
Right.
turns them into gifts, turns them into strengths.
I love that. That's so great. So you started, you had your teacher, you got into human design. Tell me a little, let's tell the audience who might not be familiar with human design what it is exactly.
I call it a cosmic blueprint because it's based on where the planets were at the time you were born. Similar to astrology, but a little bit different. And it tells you different information than there is in an astrology chart. I know people who have done astrology, love astrology, and we learn about their human design and they can see how they fit together.
Mm-hmm.
So they complement very nicely.
Right.
And it tells you about your gifts, about your strengths, and about your struggles and difficulties, the things that motivate you. It's an incredible amount of information. And when I do readings for people, that's like, oh,
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yes. And is this something that you continue to, once you get your chart, once you get the information about you, is it the same material and you just work with that material, or is it a journey or more than that? How does it really work for somebody?
Your birth chart is always the same. It doesn't change. And it gives you themes that are going to run throughout your entire life. And having been in it now, doing it now for 12 years, I continue having aha moments about it. So it continues to reveal layers of understanding. And then you look at how your chart interacts with what's going on in the sky right now. So where the planets are today. You have cycles that you run through where it'll give you more themes. So there's tons of information available for you forever. You can look at your relationships, how your chart interacts with somebody else's chart.
Right.
As a business person, my chart has a huge impact on my business. So we can look at that as well. So
and how do you look at that on a business level? Is there like a certain section that you would look at, or do you pull, is it something new, or you just would go back and review the material again?
So as someone who has a small business, basically my business is me, we can say.
Right. Okay.
Even, and I have people I work with, business owners who I work with, who have employees, who have staff, but their business is still very closely tied with them. So the energies in my chart have a huge impact on what my business looks like. And then I can also run a business chart.
Okay. And how do you do that?
The date of the business.
The date of the business. Interesting. That is so cool. So this is really helpful for someone, for anybody, really. I mean, anyone who's on the personal journey, or someone that is looking for this in relationships, like you said, and their business. I mean, they could literally be visiting with you for, hey, this time we're going to be working on me personally. Now I want to work on my relationships, and then I want to work on my business.
So I have been doing human design, like we've been talking about, and Biofield tuning, using tuning fork and sound. I've been doing them together. And here's a really great story that I love. One of my clients is a really successful person. She's a trainer, and she had taken a break so that she could get more in alignment with her purpose. She wanted to do better with what she was doing. And so she just took like a sabbatical. And we started with Biofield tuning, and then we did human design. And we were primarily helping her for her business. But pretty quickly, she realized that what she was learning was applying to her life as well. When we did her human design chart, just kind of like she had all these wake ups, these awarenesses about herself and her childhood and her relationship with her family and the belief systems that she had carried forward from being a child. And we looked at her human design chart, and she saw, oh, in my relationship with my teenage son, This is having a huge impact. So she started really interacting with her son differently, totally transformed that relationship. And then, oh, look at my relationship with my partner. More awareness, better communication, more relating with her partner. So she started seeing the differences in her family life first. And then, oh, so it's like looking at myself in my business as I interact with people that I'm doing training with. This is how this is applying. This is how this shows up. My gifts that I see in my human design chart, I'm using them there and there. So when people take their gifts that they're living all the time, you're always giving your gifts. The issue is that most people aren't consciously aware of this. So when I take something that I do all of the time, like when she was doing her training, with awareness of it consciously, it totally changes it. It's like, oh, I am going to make that difference there.
Yeah.
And it enables me to recognize the contribution that I'm making in ways that I might not have before.
Mm-hmm. That is so neat. Now, tell me how the biofield tuning and the sound frequency, because I've used them in Reiki, believe it or not. I had someone that did sound healing with crystal bowls and then used the tuning forks with it, which was like frequency was amazing. But tell me how does this help and how does it coexist with the human design?
I'm pretty much the only practitioner doing these two modalities together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never heard that together.
Yeah. When I'm doing biofield tuning, I'm working with your energy field, the aura, right?
Okay.
The biofield.
Okay.
And I'm using the tuning fork and the sound with intention, with the intuitive guidance and information I receive, similar to what you do when you work, right? And so I'm seeing what's going on in the energy field, where it gets stuck. Mm-hmm. So, for example, what I see in the energy field is dependent on the context. If there is something that's going on in my life, for example, where I'm confused or I don't like it or there's a problem, the energy in the energy field will get stuck.
And will you feel that, or does the sound change? What do you feel?
When I pick information up, it's like kind of like visual, but it's not really visual. It's not like seeing my hand in that way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of kinesthetic, so I feel it physically in my body. There's emotional aspects to it. And I get senses, oh, like something happened in your childhood that felt like this. So that's how I pick up information.
So it kind of almost puts you online and you start to feel these emotions and then can relate it to the client.
I realize that anything that comes in while I'm doing this is probably for them, not for me. And there's something about this modality, biofield tuning specifically, because I had done other tuning fork work before and it didn't have that effect. This particular modality dramatically increases the amount of information that I receive. And it dramatically increases the accuracy and the relevance.
Now, so this is not your typical tuning fork, as you said. So this is a biofield. This is it's a bigger tuning fork from the ones that I've seen and worked with personally.
There's in biofield tuning, which is the modality that I do, we have different frequencies, and these are the ones that that make sound.
Yeah.
And then we have ones with weights on them that don't make as much sound, and they're for applying to the body. Or I might apply it to. I also might apply it to a crystal.
Oh, really cool! I love it. Now, if you're doing a remote session and you're guided to grab one of these, you need to put it somewhere for the client, will you put it on yourself? If you feel like the wrist needs attention, does that work that way or only in in-person session?
I don't apply it to my body for them. but it still totally works.
Yeah, yeah.
In my mind,
That's how you
I
do it.
see that I am working on your body,
Yes.
and people feel it.
So curious. This is where I get really curious. This is why I end up doing we're going to be tapping into this very soon. So if I am with you though, do you do in person as well?
I used to, and it depends on what the person has going on.
Okay.
If somebody has something physical going on that would benefit from physically moving tissue, like doing
Yeah,
massage, then I might.
you might.
But really, more I am heading towards doing it all virtually because depending on what it is, I find I am more able to have an impact remotely than in person.
Perfect. Yes. And
So,
that's what I'm finding a lot of a lot of healers too are getting the work done that they need to because it's energy, right? Even the fact that we're having a conversation and you're in Vancouver right now.
Eastern British Columbia.
Okay. And I'm in New Jersey. So, you know, we're still energetically in unison right now.
Yes. So
Right.
let me give you the story. When I first started doing biofield tuning as a practitioner, was shortly after the pandemic shutdown started. So I couldn't go to people and they couldn't come to me. And and this was when I wasn't sure if it was doing anything. Okay. So I have a friend who lives 5 minutes from here, but she couldn't come here. And she had landed on the vacuum cleaner with her hand and it was black and blue and she couldn't open it. This was what showed me, wow, I'm actually doing something. So I did biofield tuning with her by phone. This was before I started doing it on Zoom. And while I was working on her, the bruise went away and she could open her hand.
Like how fast?
While I was working on her.
That quick.
Yeah, I worked on her for about an hour,
But
right?
still within the hour. It wasn't like the next day over time. It was within the hour. The bruise went away. Wow.
Not completely,
But
but
to
it
the
was,
point where she could open her hand.
yes.
That's really neat.
Yeah. And when I'm doing something like craniosacral work, working with the bones of the head, that's
Yeah.
subtle work anyway, I can do so much more remotely than it would be possible for me to do in person
And you do that using the biofield tuning
with
forks.
biofield tuning.
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing that I often, because I've been a massage therapist forever. So when I do something relating to people's posture, like head, neck, pain, back pain, shoulder
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
a lot of that is postural.
Yes.
And I do a lot of that with biofield tuning. And I tell the person, okay, so it's like, hey, your head position, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
having them correct their head position and release the tension. I
Yes.
can do all of that with biofield tuning and saying, hey, notice where your head is, bring it back.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned this because someone who's an avid person who feels you need self-care, right? It's essential. However, I'm someone who was finding myself over and over again going to the chiropractor to get my neck adjusted or well, I wish I had massages, but wanting a massage, knowing that I need it. And those are all great things. However, this is to anyone who's like someone like me where it just can't fit the time in to physically go somewhere because you have young children, you have your own business, you have your life. It's crazy, but you can get on a call and know that the frequency of what you need is in something like this. And that is amazing because you speaking of the neck forward, been there, literally, I've looked at episodes where my head is like this the whole time, tilted like this the whole time. And I'm like, oh man. But it's important that people can understand that these modalities exist. And this is something very unique that you do, Sandra. So I'm really glad that.
Yeah. So thinking about what is it that I might be seeing if you have these issues. And I'm working with biofield tuning. Okay, so I am setting intention. So what is going on in the neck here? And I do a tune, strike the tuning fork, and it shows me, oh, well, there's tension here and position, and this, and it's connected to the back. And so I bring the person's consciousness to that and have them adjust their position and
Right.
see how it affects the energy. It completely changes the energy flow.
I find that very fascinating because I can totally relate to that too, versus like someone who like consciousness. Okay, so let's briefly touch on consciousness because when we are exploring this, consciousness isn't necessarily in here, right? It's like everywhere. So would you say if someone has a neck problem, it might not just be the neck, it could be somewhere else or in that body, correct?
Absolutely. So when I am doing biofield tuning, okay, it will show me this is connected to this, is connected to that, is connected to your childhood,
Mm,
is connected to the stress in your work, is connected to the responsibilities that you feel. So it's like all of the pieces, it shows
yes.
me how they all relate together.
It's all the unseen things. We're not talking about just the physical, and we're not just talking about pain. We're talking about all the things that exist in your field
Well, and in your history.
and in your history, right? In the past now moments or even the future now moments, right? You can be able to probably help with those things as well.
Yeah. And then I have been more consciously bringing in inherited
Yes.
patterns and karmic patterns. So when doing biofield tuning, it's like the body is here and the energy field is around it. At the edge of the field, you have conception. Outside, you have inherited.
Hmm.
And if you believe in other lifetimes, outside is where other lifetime stuff is. Personally, I believe that when we're working on this, we're working on the issues for all of humanity. So it's
Like
not
the
necessarily
oneness.
me. Yeah, it's not necessarily me and that in some previous lifetime I actually experienced this. It may be, but it could also be, this is just something that humanity has to deal with.
Yeah.
All of humanity. So by working on these issues myself, I am serving that broader community. So
Yes.
you have conception and then inherited and then other lifetimes. And then you have everything that has happened over the course of your lifetime. It's all stored in your energy field
Right. Right. It's
and
like
it's
we're this
stored in your
amazing
body.
computer.
Yeah.
But we're not, not saying we're robots or anything, but still, like we're the most advanced that there could be. Wonderful. Oh my gosh, so good. So good.
So in working with it with biofield tuning, we're able to work with all of that.
Yeah.
We're
Like,
able to work with, the me when I was 6 that
yes.
still gets charged, stuck, confronted by something happening today. We can work with my inner 6-year-old
Yeah.
that, the way I describe it is, my inner 6-year-old pulls the circuit breakers, shuts me down. So when I work with her, she is more willing to allow me to do something that is scary, that I don't know
Yeah.
how to do. There's plenty of
Because
that.
we're still those children, they're still part of us. That's part of the work when I first started getting into this is really going back to that moment in time where you had that shift. Something happened. Where did the trauma occur? At what age or whatever? And I had my inner child locked in a basement, most of the time. And I created this other version of myself that was strong and could get through the day and not be emotional. So this is all such good stuff. And in a way, you kind of made it like the tuning fork is like it's like a mouse in a way, like when you want to get to something on your screen, it's like it helps you navigate to get there in a way.
Well, and, part of the issue is that consciously, I'm not making all these connections. Just helping the person be aware of it changes so much. Because with awareness, I have choice. And it makes it so I'm no longer helpless when it comes to that area.
I
Awareness
can
makes
see why you're so passionate about it. It makes me feel so great inside just what you do, because who wouldn't want to be more in tuned in this way? And that's why we're here. That's why we're here doing this journey together, to find our gifts and how we can best utilize them to work together. And so I loved all that you shared. It was really cool. And I can't wait to dive deeper with you personally. Now, I know you mentioned you have a workshop coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about this so we can let our audience tune in to the date and everything like that, what it's about?
I am doing a workshop called Being Seen and Heard, Heal the Trauma with Biofield Tuning. Now, doing massage therapy and biofield tuning and human design for years, a consistent challenge that people have is feeling like they're seen and heard. Not just me, this is pretty common. I think that this is a pretty universal human issue that people struggle with. And then over the past 3 years, with all of this stuff that's gone on in the past 3 years, there's been a lot of suppression, a lot of fear, a lot of upset, anger, grief, shame, guilt, has been used to control people.
Sure.
Control people and their behavior. And I decided to create this workshop when I was thinking about this and realizing that even though now a lot of the restrictions are no longer being imposed, when I am thinking about talking with someone or writing to someone, I was like, oh, wait, is this person possibly going to get upset about what I'm going to say? And I censor myself.
Yeah.
And, when I am walking through the grocery store, oh, wait, I can't get too close to people. All of these fear-based limitations that were placed on us, I realize that I've internalized them. Me, someone who is conscious of all of this and aware, I am still noticing the self-imposed limitations from these internalized restrictions.
Right.
And it's all based on fear.
Right.
So I wanted to do what I call a human collective session, where I'm working on all of humanity. And I've been doing these human collective sessions since 2021. And they are incredibly powerful.
This sounds amazing.
Yeah. So to allow us to release all of the load, I mean, it's been over and over and over again.
Yeah.
All of this stuff and all of the traumas that have happened that have led to more fear, more manipulation.
It's funny that I feel you talking about this and I can feel this load, because I feel like a lot of us are kind of wanting to hold some of the load for the people that are like vulnerable right now. And we, at some point, there's a breaking point and it's going to go. So why not ease that load and that a little bit, right?
Yeah. So that we all can start having more freedom.
Yes.
To be ourselves. Because they're having to, relax some of these restrictions now. So the fear about getting close to people, for example, is no longer necessary. The fear about breathing. Oh my gosh, so much fear about breathing.
Oh, which is free. You are a sovereign being that can breathe this air.
And it's now known that none of that restriction on breathing was actually necessary or effective.
Right. It's all coming out. Right.
And so, but people are still afraid to breathe.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of concern too, if you're watching media, which I've shared openly on my channel. This is why I created the conscious broadcast, because I want to create stories and real news where we're not driving a narrative of propaganda and fear. And so thank you for sharing this, because we can let go here. This is real. This is happening right now. Someone's actually helping people using her gifts to find their true, authentic freedom that we've somehow along the way decided to shut off.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and the people who have imposed these restrictions on us, they understand that almost everybody has some fears about self-expression and being seen
Sure.
from their childhood.
Yep.
And so they capitalize on that, knowing that this is an issue that people have anyway.
Right.
They come with their authority and force people basically
Yeah.
to do things that they wouldn't have done otherwise.
And it's a way to control the population. I mean, let's
Yes,
just say it that way.
it
And
is.
there is no fear about that, because as you get deeper into your human design and other modalities out there, you can find that there's nothing to be afraid of. It's only one way: fear or love, fear or love.
So this workshop is going to help you release the load of all of that fear that has been imposed on you over the past 3 years, and hopefully also help you find some freedom from the younger childhood-based fears that really were more truly survival-based.
Yeah.
Because when you're a child, you
Yeah.
have to do these things to survive.
Right.
So my workshop is called Being Seen and Heard: Heal the Trauma with Biofield Tuning. So it's going to be doing Biofield tuning. And it does on May 10th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And there's a website where you can go and register for it.
That's on a Wednesday, the 10th
Yeah,
of May,
it's
right?
on Wednesday the 10th.
Okay.
And it's beingseen.miracleinspirations.com.
Very exciting.
It will be recorded. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, these human collective sessions are so, I call them evolutionary every time I do them, because it really feels like that a lot gets changed.
Now,
So
do you go live that night, or is it just you and
it will
people?
be live. It will be live and recorded.
Okay.
And you'll get the
Great.
recording. So you can listen to it again. So
Yeah.
each time you listen to the recording or watch the recording, because you get both video and audio, you
Yeah.
get the healing again.
Wonderful. And I also want you to tell me a little bit more about how we can find you if someone wants to reach out and get a session with you, and or other things that you do on a monthly basis. Would you mind sharing that with us as well?
Sure. So my website is miracleinspirations.com. And if you want to schedule time to talk with me to see if what I do might help you, then it's miracleinspirations.com/book-a-call. And Danielle will have the link to that as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. And I know you do something also. Is it on Thursdays, the second Thursday of every month? Would you mind sharing that?
The third Thursday of
Third
every
Thursday.
month on Facebook Live, I do a 10-minute biofield tuning session once a month, and people love those.
Yeah.
And then for those people who are interested in joining us in Spirit Calling, I'm starting to do a similar thing for the Spirit Calling community the second Thursday of every month.
Okay. That's what it was. Awesome. So Sandra has so much to offer. So I really excited that you got to share all that you did today. And I know my audience is really going to enjoy it. It's right up our alley. So thank you again for joining me. Do you have anything else left to say that we might have missed?
What I want to say is you are always giving your gift and living your purpose. A lot of times people don't think they're making a contribution. They feel like they don't matter. And no matter what you are doing, you're always living your human design chart and giving your gifts. And when you become conscious of them, that's what enables you to really shine. Because it's like, oh, I'm making a difference here.
Beautiful. And it does. It feels good when you have found almost like your purpose, really. So, well, thank you again, Sandra, for joining me today. And I want to thank the audience for tuning into this episode. And I hope you have a nice day, and we'll see you next time on the Conscious
Thank you so much,
Broadcast.
Danielle.
Yes, thank you. Take care.